Hey YouTube, what's up? Trump's in. It's the day after. So, we've got 4 more years. But I expect that there's a lot going to happen in 4 years. Are you ready? Hold fast. Hold fast. Hello, NAFO. I hope some of you find, well, you know, I'm trying to bring some NAFO over to my channel. So hello. Look, even with NAFO community, look, there's a lot of people that don't really discuss, I feel, in enough detail, the philosophy and the people behind the men, the network. So I've been exposing the network of alt media for 9 years, and a lot's happened in 9 years, hasn't it? I decided, to take all my videos down. I was exposing the network of YouTubers, influencers and networks 9 years ago, and I found a network in alt media, and I looked in, found people out like Robert Mercer and Christian radio networks, B-list celebrities and stuff like that. The whole network community of truth seeking, red pill, whatever you want to call them. So I started exposing them 9 years ago, and then I stopped, took all my videos down. Look, then Ukraine got invaded, and I thought, oh God. So I've always hoped for the best, and it's just not happened. Things have just got escalated and got worse, and now with Trump in, I don't want to be doom and gloomy, but we've got to fight now. Because if we don't, where's the ideology? What is the ideology of Trump? Well, you just look into his base, don't you? You look into his base. Now I expose on my channel propaganda symbolism, and I educate about geometry. I talk about monumental propaganda, and these are all examples of monumental propaganda. I can't, imagery, right? This is, and there's a connect between, the style of symbols used by these groups. These were groups in popular culture, right? So it's a subject in itself, really. I mean, trust me to choose a topic where, like geometry and decoding, monumental propaganda, but it is all one subject. The X symbolism, right? X symbolism always pops up in popular culture. Excuse the pun, I didn't mean that one. Pops up in popular culture. That's a good example. The Spanish Empire, the colonial empire of the Roman Catholic Church, and the X symbolism that pops up in popular culture, But I could decode this and spend hours decoding this picture to do with the geometry. And I have done that on this channel, right? I'm decoding this symbolism, and there have been different periods in popular culture where this symbolism has been very, very popular. One was in 70 years ago, right? Because, in great times of upheaval, we're talking about a shifting of the world order, a shifting of the order, and it's all up for grabs, isn't it? You can have a Christian revolution, a Catholic revolution, a Protestant revolution, a fascist revolution, a Christian fascist revolution, a white Christian nationalist revolution. And the axes, symbols of revolution, symbols of power, symbols of the world order. And the world order, the pendulum swings from right to left. And we have revolutions. Revolutions, world orders forming, and world orders crumbling. And it's been a continuous cycle. It's the story of mankind, right? But the symbolism of the old order. Let's get through. We've got some geometry here. It is linked. The subject is linked. I'm showing you the symbolism, right? It goes back to the Republic. It goes back beyond the Republic. It goes back to the beginnings of civilization. The symbolism of the ideal city, the symbolism of how to construct an ideal society. And it does have a astrological, geometrical origin. That is what the Renaissance is about. The light, the knowledge. A new Jerusalem, a new world. Zion, the capital on the hill. An ideal city. That's what all of the New Jerusalem, Zion. That's what all the geometry is about. It's all encoded in the vision of St. John on the Isle of Patmos. That was a revolution. Christianity was a revolution. The 60s were a revolution. The Renaissance revolution was a revolution. The Napoleonic Wars was a revolution. The Romans invading was a revolution. The Roman Catholic Church was a revolution. There are many types of revolutions. There are Jewish revolutions. There are Jewish fascists. Jewish fascist revolutions. What's Netanyahu doing? There was a Soviet, communist, international, global revolution. And it's still playing out. It's a new world order. It's a grab for a new world order. The axis is turning. The world is revolving. The weather is changing. French Revolution was a revolution. a shifting of the axis from one order to a new order, from the old ancient regime to a new order. The symbology of the new order is playing out all the time. The world's always revolving. The world's always revolving. The thing is, that knowledge used to be a secret. Shh. It used to be scientific. And a king used to want to guard the knowledge. Who had the knowledge would come out on top, right? If you knew how to navigate around the planet, you don't want your enemy to know. So it's all secret. Making maps was a very sophisticated and secret affair, for it was controlled by the ruler. Measurements were controlled by rulers. And there's a connection there in the words I just told you. We're in a time of popular culture now. Popular culture. There's a rumble, a distant sound of thunder and guns in the distance. It's an ex-revolution for a new dawn for a new day and a new world order. And we've just woken up to one today. Well, yesterday we woke up to a new order, new world order. Can you feel the power shifting on the axis? Feel the power shifting, and the world is turning on its axis. The world order is changing. Right, so look, I've sort of, this is an intro. You get what I'm on about, yeah? If you're new here today, I might not be able to explain the geometry to you. It's a lifetime of work, right, to learn geometry. And if you don't know anything about a subject, you're illiterate. And you should have paid attention at school more. If you didn't, go back to some of my earlier videos and I'll try and bring you up to speed. But it's the Republic. All goes back to the Republic. What are we going through now in the States? We have a revolutionary movement of hard right-wing Christian nationalism merged with right-wing Zionism. Right. Two theologies converge when it comes to Christianity. That's right-wing Zionism and Jewish ideology converges with right-wing white Christian nationalism. They're having their renaissance now and they're kicking our ass. Right? One step forward, 2 steps back, and that's how democracy rolls. And we've just taken 2 steps back, right? It's been a coup d'etat from within. We've let the Trojan horse in through the door, and now it's consuming us. Right. And it's the culmination of a 100-year plan. We've been asleep at the wheel. Democracy's been asleep at the wheel. So, right, look. Three subjects on my channel are revolutionary symbolism, geometry. So the geometry is about when world orders are formed in great ages of revolutions. There are two threads in classical literature that talk about this subject. One is in the Bible. It's biblical, right? So it is part of the Jewish ideology and the Christian ideology. The other one comes from Plato, and it's the subject matter of the New Jerusalem, Zion, which Plato refers to as an ideal city. So your capital on the hill in the States is based on this geometry of Zion, a heavenly city. It's a construct a geometrical construct, right? And in the Bible, it's described as a city descending to planet Earth, right? And it's described as a giant round cube descending. This is heaven, Zion. A giant cube descends to planet Earth, and that's what New Jerusalem is. It's the vision of St. John on the Isle of Patmos, his high vision on the island of the vision of heaven. And heaven is described as a cube, or a round cube, a circular cube. It has the measurements, the dimensions, and everything. And that's what Capitol Hill is a representation for in Washington, D.C. There are many examples all over the world. It heralds back to an ancient cosmology. It's older than Christianity. It goes back to the Egyptians. And I'm proving that in my videos as well. So if you're not quite up to speed with that and you think I'm full of shit, I've already proved it. I don't need to prove it again. But I will continue to do it. And we'll get round to that another day. But now we're talking politics today. It's all about politics now. Are you holding steadfast? Are you ready for the storm? Because there's a storm coming. There's a thunder and rumble in the distance of guns and thunder. Revolutionary symbolism and X-symbolism always pop up in revolutionary cultures and in world order eras like now, like the Second World War, like the Renaissance, like the birth of Christianity, like the teachings of the Republic. It all goes back to the Republic and the Renaissance. We're in a revolution, and it's there's a group of, we've been infiltrated, we've let them in, and they're now embedded in our culture. You've got to know their ideology. What is the ideology behind Trump? What are the seeds of it, right? What are the seeds of it? And how do they spread their ideology? Look into the people behind Trump. If you look into the people behind alt media, you start to discover a network of people that billionaires, right-wing billionaires, that have got an ideology, and they've been chipping away for a long time with assistance from the KGB. And we've been micro-targeted. The population has been micro-targeted. And the ideology of this network has permeated the internet. It's a fascist ideology that's embedded in popular culture. We've been subverted massively between the left wing and the right wing. 50 years of propaganda of Marxism and revolutionary ideology. And then we've had heavy, always in the background there, you've got the fascists, the communists and the fascists. The communists and the fascists singing off the same song sheet, aren't they? They're reflections of each other. The old order. Why do you think the Florida flag is like it is? What's that to do with? Would it have anything to do with Spain and the old Catholic Christian order? The same ideology that basically wiped out the indigenous population of the Americas. One of the biggest genocides in ever, right? And you've still got the flag in the southern states, right? That's where the ideology comes from. This is the roots of the ideology, of the Nazi ideology, the fascist ideology of white Christian nationalism. And Hitler used that. Hitler did the same thing. Let's have a look at Hitler. Let's have a look at Hitler whilst we're here. Hitler used the Christians. Germany was a Christian country. Germany was a Christian country. In the name of God and Jesus. The axis of evil. A country of Christians marching into genocide. Marching Christian soldiers on their way to war. Fascist Jews. Fascist Jews and a revolution. Hard right Zionism and Nazis. Christian Nazis marching on to war. In the name of Jesus. So you get the gist, right? So that's done. We've done that for this video. It's going to be a deep dive on the symbology. We've got 4 years, so we may as well do it. So another deep dive we're going to have to be doing, it looks like, with this. Right, so we'll move into the video now. So we're talking about Weinstein, right? And we're going to look into Weinstein in this video, his background and his ideology. And this video may not get to a conclusion, but we are going to discuss the ideology behind the network, behind Trump. I don't know whether to just do geometry videos or carry on exposing these people around Trump. Trump's won the election. There seems to be a complete lack of knowledge about the people behind Trump. The mainstream media don't talk too much about it. One group people do talk about this a lot, and that's NAFO. Welcome any NAFO people. The darkest hour is just before dawn. Bret Samuel Weinstein, born February 21st, 1969, is an American podcaster, author, and former professor of evolutionary biology. He served on the faculty of Evergreen State College from 2002 until 2017. When he resigned in the aftermath of a series of campus protests about racial equality at Evergreen, which brought Weinstein to national attention, like his brother Eric Weinstein, he was named as a member of the intellectual dark web in 2018. New York Times essay by columnist Barraways, Weinstein has been criticised for making false statements about COVID-19 treatments and vaccines, and for spreading misinformation about HIV and AIDS. It's funny that, isn't it? You know, because like it was Russian intelligence that were behind the operation to spread disinformation about AIDS right back in the 80s. It's like the Russian subversion in American politics. It runs really deep, doesn't it? But where are the seeds of it too, right? Now let's look into his background. Weinstein, a native Southern Californian, began his undergraduate studies at the University of Pennsylvania. As a freshman, he wrote a letter to the school newspaper that condemned sexual harassment of strippers at Zeta, Beta, Tau. Is that how you pronounce it? I can never pronounce that. I'm not too great with Greek words. So he's from the fraternity Zeta Beta. That's tied to his... Is it the university he went to? University of Pennsylvania. So this was his frat club. Zeta Beta, right. I mean, that is one fascist looking logo. You could do a deep dive on this, couldn't you? Skull and crossbones. I mean, personal life and views. Weinstein is married to Heather Haleen, an evolutionary biologist. I don't know about this guy. I know he's he's a dodgy evolutionist, yeah? Time I look into these people, there's always Russian ties. And as I've already said in this video, it was Russian intelligence who were behind the propaganda to do with the misinformation to do with AIDS back in the 80s. And what we're talking about in Europe and America is Russian subversion that's been going on for decades. And it's been going on in popular culture, hasn't it? You know, one of the reasons I believe the West is so weak is the long-term invasion in popular culture of this, like, all of these wacky spiritual, you know, the ideology behind spiritualism, I believe, is medieval, right? That's not to say I'm attacking anyone that's got any spiritual beliefs. I'm not. But it's like it's like the medieval concepts of Christianity. That the medieval mindset of Christianity came from the Catholic order. And in those days, everyone believed in demons, right? It's medieval. And a lot of the New Age movement in popular culture is like so spiritualized. Like this blending of Eastern religions into the West, I believe, has corrupted us, right? You know, it's been a liberal blending, but it's undermined our traditional values so quickly. It's created a psychological division and split within the psyche between the generations and between the ideologies, right? The old order and the new order. The thing is, this story's been going on for hundreds of years. It was going on with the Renaissance. What's going on? I can hear something outside my house. Oh, it's the bin men. What we're talking about is... Look, I'm going to have to... You know, whether... Look, there's different orders in the... Let me put it this way. There's different orders, right? There's a Catholic order, which comes from Rome. It's the Roman Catholic order. Now, the Renaissance that came out of Florence was about the printed book going into print. There was a scientific renaissance. Part of that scientific renaissance also led to partly a Christian renaissance, right, in the Protestant movement. They are connected. You know, the Protestant movement was a rebellion against the Catholic order, right? And so was the scientific renaissance. But with the true birth of the Republic, the true Republic, and I feel I'm going to have to dedicate my channel to revealing what the Republic is about, because it is tied into geometry. The two subjects are related. I digress on this video. Let's go back to that symbol. Like, this guy's... He's got Jewish ties. He's in this what is the ideology behind this fraternal order? Zeta, Beta, Tau, sorry, my Greek pronunciations, is a Greek letter social fraternity based in North America. It was founded on December 29th, 1898, originally a Zionist youth society. Its purpose changed from the Zionism of the fraternity's early years, when in 1954 the fraternity became non-sectarian and open to non-Jewish members, changing its membership policy to include all men of good character, regardless of religious or ethnic background, while still being recognized as the first Jewish fraternity. History. Founding. The Zeta Beta Tau fraternity was led until his death by Richard J. H. Goathill, a professor of languages in Columbia University and a Zionist. On December 29, 1898, he formed a Zionist youth society with a group of students from several New York City's universities. 15 young men, among them were Herman Abramowitz, Aaron Levy, Bernhard Bloch, David Leibniz, I can't pronounce that, Isidore Delson, Louis S. Posner, Aaron Drucker, Bernhard Sachs. The list goes on. The society was called ZBT, which referred to the first letters in the transliteration of the Hebrew phrase Zion be misfatipateh, which translated means Zion shall be redeemed with justice. This is taken from Isaiah, and it continues. You don't want to listen to me reading it, and plus, I'm not the best reader, but I can speed read. In 1903, ZBT formally became Zeta Beta Tau, and I'm gonna use the abbreviation from now on. And its purpose shifted away from that of a Zionist youth organization as other Zionist organizations grew in prominence. The original Hebrew meaning of ZBT is not esoteric. The meaning is reported in the official written history of ZBT. Here's to our fraternity, 100 years of ZBT. By Marianne Raquel Sanua. ZBT expanded rapidly. By 1909, it had established 13 chapters in northeastern United States and a 14th at Tulane University in New Orleans. In 1913, it established its first Canadian chapter at McGill University in Montreal. And in the same year, ZBT was first represented at the National Interfraternity Conference. 5 years later, it founded its first West Coast chapter at the University of Southern California in Los Angeles. At the 1954 National Convention, the delegates amended ZBT's constitution, ritual, and internal procedures, both in theory and in practice, to eliminate sectarianism and a qualification for membership. ZBT has merged with 4 other national Jewish fraternities: Pi Alpha, Kappa Nu, Pi Sigma Delta, and Pi Epsilon Pi. Which I'm a layman. With chapters and colonies at over 90 campus locations in 1959. Phi Alpha Pi Alpha merged into Pi Sigma Delta, and in 1961 Kappa Nu merged with Pi Epsilon Pi. In 1969-70, Pi Sigma Delta and Pi Epsilon Pi merged into Zeta. You can tell I'm not a Freemason, right? I can't even read the Greek words. Zeta Beta Tau's official name is the Brotherhood of Kappa Nu. Pi Alpha, Pi Epsilon, Pi Sigma Delta. Oh, God, I'm not in the club. So, I just want to quickly summarise. I've spent a couple days now on this video. It's quite long, but the subject matter is extensive. The reason I'm doing this is, look, I'll continue doing this on my own, but it would be great for people to start contributing in my either on Twitter or in my Facebook, contribute in my YouTube comments, because I'm trying to raise awareness of the ideology of the network of people who are behind Trump and this rise of the right wing. And to summarize, look, it is where Christianity, right-wing Christian nationalism, converges with right-wing nationalist Zionism, right? In a populist movement with nefarious far-right ties across Europe. And I feel that if it isn't directly the ideologies of these fraternities, there's a coup d'etat, what Kennedy warned about, right? And it looks like this is what this subject looks like it's uncovering these networks or people within these fraternities with nefarious ties to brotherhoods in Europe, right? It's an ideology, and the idea, Zeta. ZBT abolished the institution of pledging in 1989 as a way to combat and eliminate hazing, and replaced the pledging process with one in which new members are accepted as brothers upon receiving a bid to the fraternity. ZBT's decision was to do away with pledging, did not involve any associate membership process. However, once a brother joins the fraternity, he will receive all rights and responsibilities as the rest of the chapter, and shall be eligible for any position within the chapter, regardless of how long he has been a brother. This decision was made in response to the Age of Liability, in which extensive research on hazing shed light on how the culture of subservient pledging led to several deaths nationwide. That sounds a bit dodgy. National philanthropies, God. There's 1,000 words in a symbol or in a logo. There's so much to unpack here. But we can assume now that it has, right-wing Zionist roots, right? But it has it's got a fascist, it's got the Roman fasci, in it. It's, with that fist, it's got more than Jewish symbolism. And it goes, it's old, isn't it, right? The roots of it go back to Germany, right, and Europe. And I've spoke a lot about. Well, I haven't spoke a lot about it. Sorry, but I've spoke about the symbolism in heraldry. I'm able to decode some of that, there's a philosophy behind an ideal city, which I speak a lot about in geometry and symbolism. So there's a representation of it on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., right? That's based on this philosophy of and that design on Capitol Hill is linked to Zion, because Zion is the New Jerusalem, right? And I talk to you a lot on my channel about the New Jerusalem symbology, right? Of God's heavenly city descending onto planet Earth, right? Now the symbology and geometry linked to the heavenly earth, New Jerusalem, Zion, coming to planet Earth, is a description of a giant cube that descends, right? That's what Zion is. It's heaven, right? It's in Revelations. So it's linked to Jewish popular culture, and it's linked to Christian popular culture. And I know this, there are real hard right-wing Christian ideologies and hard right-wing Zionist ideologies converge, right? They're singing on the same song sheet. And it's an ideology in, some of the fraternal lodges, right? And that's a very big rabbit hole to look into. Oh. See, I'm exposing this whole group of techno bros. David Sachs, Mercer, Peter Thiel, Elon Musk. There's a whole big wide network behind the Trump movement, tied into Christianity, tied into fraternal organisations. It's such a massive rabbit hole. The subversion is so deep, though. It goes so deep in our culture. If we just take the last period of the last 70 years, that big political shift after the Second World War, and then the 60s. The 60s was an explosion of culture that had Renaissance in it, because this Renaissance, we're still in it. It's 600 years old. It's 2,000 years old, right? The Renaissance has never fully been able to light up and affect every person. There are so many illiterate people with the English language. We're looking at, so there's this symbology we're looking at now is a whole language behind this. I've mentioned it before. It goes back to heraldic, the heraldic language, right? The old European heraldic language. And it is a complete language. We, though, are not in the club. But you can decode this, and I've been able to decode some of it, but, we've got a fascist symbol there, right, from the old order, the old Roman order. But it's a fascist symbol, isn't it, on the left there? And we got the fist. And there is just so much to unpack. Like I say, I'm illiterate of this language. I am only to decode some of it through a knowledge as a layman of popular culture and geometry and the little knowledge I do have about fraternal imagery. I'm looking at it through a geometrical lens and a lens of analysing symbols from popular culture. So do any of you recognise this? Well, it's the Russian Christian logo, right, from the Russian Orthodox Church. It's been kicking around for a while, this, in Russian Orthodox Church. I just want to take this opportunity. NAFO, if any of you are here, hello, right? This is an intro, right? And I mean this to everybody as well, right? This video here today, which I'm going to upload, I haven't yet, obviously, I'm doing it, that I've made a decision today that I'm going to continue to do a deep dive on the symbolism of this popular culture, of this rise of the right wing, right? And it involves the symbolism in popular culture, right? That there is, I've got a good knowledge of some of it, but what I've decided today, guys, that if you're interested in understanding the symbology, I can help you along the way, right? And I'm on a journey as well. But one of the things I have been researching for over a decade is the symbolism around the popular culture we know of as libertarianism and populist, right? So there's a deep, dark history to this symbology, right? And there are connections to be made with, the deep, dark roots of Christianity, deep, dark roots of Russia, right? So you're looking at a cross now of the Russian church, Russian Christianity. Notice the skull and crossbones, right? This is a symbol, a Christian symbol of a populist movement that happened in Russia. It's a symbol of the old order, right? Without wasting too much of your time now, what I have found out about this symbolism, it's what's known as it was commonly referred to in the Second World War as the axis of evil. Right, let's do the skull and crossbones. I know some of it, but I thought I'd do it for the sake of the video. Skull and crossbones is a symbol consisting of human skull, blah, blah, blah. Now, I'm trying not to do too much of a deep dive, but it is important to cover some of the symbolism. That does, we all know it's the death symbol of the Templars, symbol of pirates, death, chemical poisoning. It's bad. The bubonic plague, the Nazis. There's another Christian story. I can't quite find it now, but I'll just mention it for the symbolic reference. It's got something to do with Adam, where Adam died. It's so so there's my point for the video, without me prattling on, is that it's symbolic, Christian symbolic meaning, but also the ties of it with the military regalia in Europe and in popular culture. The Nazis used it, and we've found it now in a fraternal. It's the infamous skull and crossbones symbols. Need I say any more? Military use. We all know it was the Nazi death cross, right? And I will say what I already know of it. It was associated with the crucifixion of Jesus. The Knights Templar used it, right? Skull and crossbones, like from the... What are those frat clubs that the Bushes were in? That would be the skull and crossbones. Oh, it come to me. I might have to do that for the sake of the video. So we know about the Nazi SS-like link, right? Its use in fascism. Since the mid-18th century, skull and crossbone insignia has been officially used as in European armies as symbols of superiority. One of the first regiments was the Frederick the Great's Hussars in 1741, also known as Totenkopfs. Right, Toten for the. I think we need to do it justice. Totenkopfs Totenkopfhussaren. Totenkopfhussaren. From this tradition, the skull became an important emblem in the German army. Identical insignia has been used in the Prussian army after the First World War by Freikorps in Nazi Germany, by the Wehrmacht and the SS. The idea of elitism, symbolized by the skull and crossbones, has influenced sub and pop culture and has become part of the fashion industry. This is what I mean about popular culture, right? And the subject matter is of the national flags, right, and fraternal symbolism, how it links to the old Renaissance and geometry. It's all one subject. I've been doing videos for 9 years about it. I recently, the last several months, have decided to build up a catalogue on my channel of the basics of geometry. And the other part of my channel is exposing propaganda. So, look, in a nutshell, the symbolism in popular culture, going back over the popular eras in the West, right back to the Republic and Renaissance days of the Greeks, right? The origins of the Republic and Renaissance popular culture go back a couple thousand years. You know, we're currently living through a great time of change in popular culture. Part of the popular culture's rise in Europe and America has been a rise of the right wing. We're looking at their symbolism, right? And it's of the old order. The right wing is the old order, ancient regime, right? So, you know, these great revolutionary periods, French Revolution, you know, Renaissance, Second World War. In the Second World War, you had a resurgence of the old order, ancient regimes, symbolism, which was commonly referred to as the axis of evil. Right? Well, we're looking at part of that symbolism now, right? Some of the symbolism, you know, so there's many ways to look at this. I'm on a journey of investigation on my channel. With what's happened politically, I've sort of been building up for it in a way. Like, you know, I'm trying to put down the ground roots on my channel of the basic fundamentals of geometry. But recently I've been, through my own studies, have been able to put together the symbolism of populism. So one era of populism was 70 years ago in the fascist axis of evil, right? The symbolism behind that axis, what we call the axis of evil, is the subject matter of what we're discussing now, right? So if you're new to the subject, hello, right? I've been studying this for 30 years and I still don't make complete sense of it, but I have gained quite a lot of knowledge over the way. So I've got a background in geometry, and I'm still a student of that, right? But this, like, you know, revolutionary symbolism in popular culture, you know, goes back to our origins. You know, you can go back thousands of years, right? It's the rise and fall of civilizations, the story of, you know, how liberal democracy came into being took a long time, right? So the subject matter is wide and extensive, and we're not going to be able to, you know, complete the topic matter today in this video. I do have videos where I am putting down the foundational knowledge of geometry. So if you're new to the subject, you might not, you know, even understand what's going on. But it's like there's a connection. I've known for 9 years there's massive subversion in Western culture from, you know, Russia, right? Some of that's and look, I know, I have a knowledge of politics, of left wing and right wing politics. We're not in the club, guys, right? And I don't want to brand all Freemasonry with one brushstroke, but we're talking about a network of people that always tie into these sinister roots, right? And to sinister fraternities, that might not be necessarily we might. I don't. Look, I don't want to call it that or say them, but we're talking about people that operate in these fraternity clubs, right? Back to this symbol we're looking at. It's the Russian Christian cross, and it's got that skull and crossbones, right? Who else had that in popular culture 70 years ago? Right, you got one guess, begins with N. Yeah, the Nazis, the axis of evil. So why is that same symbol on this so-called Jewish fraternity club? That's my question. But what the point, so there's a I can decode this symbol in the middle for you, right? That's the rhombus, right? Which is two equilateral triangles, which is based on the square root 3 ratio, which is one of the most important ratios in geometry. One of the most, it's not the most. But I do lots of, I talk a lot about the geometry that's in this square root 3 geometry from the rhombus, which is that diamond shape, this here. And just in this, we have a Greek style temple and the cross skull and bones, the crossbone and skull. Oh, wow. I mean, so we've got our crossbones and skull, our Greek temple, and there's a Star of David, or a hexagram, the 6-pointed star, right, inside the rhombus. So there's a correlation to do with the rhombus shape and the hexagram. It's the same geometry. Which I talk about often. It's one of the most, in religious symbolism, the triangle and the 6-pointed star come from the same square root 3 geometry. It's the same. So this hexagram is 2 triangles, right? As represented in the diagram I've just popped up. So that's the geometry, which was part of the Renaissance, Republic, knowledge of geometry going back to the Greeks, right? And Freemasonry symbolism is, full of geometry. So the 6-pointed star, obviously, right? And that ties into Jewish mysticism, right? This is a Jewish fraternity. And, even though they claim they're not esoteric, they are, right? Obviously. The old esoteric traditions, that's what these symbols are about, right? But the thing is, I'm always looking, the lens I'm looking through, excuse the pun, lens, the lens I always look through to interpret, to understand the symbolism is geometry. And the origins of geometry and that knowledge go right back to the Republic. That was a Renaissance, and the important mathematical knowledge, one of the best, most common symbols to represent that is a triangle or a rhombus or a Star of David or a temple or a cross, right? So all of these symbols are tilts of the cap, little nod, little winks to, they all represent the same, that it was the knowledge, right? And this knowledge was guarded in the Dark Ages and throughout long eras of history. This knowledge has it like fashion, and that's why it always pops up in popular culture, because the symbolism of popular culture goes right back to the Renaissance, and it is connected to the mathematical knowledge of geometry that the Greeks were able to document in their writings. And that was what this spark was in the Renaissance in Florence, in Europe. That's what the Renaissance is. That's what the Republic is. So I haven't quite, there's other symbolism here to do here with the numbers of circles in the triangle. I haven't counted them yet. I don't know if we need to decode that for the sake of the video. It's probably just some other geometrical symbol, right? These symbols are at the root of popular culture. The origins of the cross go right back to the beginnings of Christianity, and then go right back, right? The cross is a solar symbol to do with revolutions of the sun and the knowledge that was known and worked out a long time ago about the sun. The scientific knowledge that was hidden from the population, but documented by the establishments of whatever era, go right back to Egypt, right? This, and that's where the Greeks learnt that. Greeks learnt a lot of their information from old, they were like us, they were looking back at an older civilization. They happened to learn some of the ancient Egyptians and Sumerians. But the Greeks learnt some of their stuff from the Orient and in India, so Sumerian writings. And this is what's happened since the Greek times. In times of chaotic shift politically, there have been renaissances at different periods. That's what popular culture is. I was going to say something else about, so the origins of the Nazi, or just not the Nazi cross, but the cross. Just a cross or an X symbol, also an X symbol, whilst we're on the subject of the Jews. There's a mystical Jewish interpretation of an X symbol that's important to Jewish mysticism, and I would say that a frat club are engaged in esoteric symbolism, because that's what their symbolism, where it comes from. It is esoteric, it is occultic, it is hidden knowledge, right? So them denying on their Wikipedia page that they're not esoteric is a bold-faced lie. There's esoteric hidden knowledge, and occultic only means hidden. It just means what the plebs don't understand, right? But if you've got geometric knowledge, if you know, if you know, if you're in the club, if you don't, you don't. What was going to be my point then? Oh yeah, we're talking about the cross symbol, the origins, the X symbol, and now, for the sake of the video, let's look at what the Jewish meaning of X symbol is. In Kabbalistic philosophy, a branch of Jewish mysticism, as referring to both life and death, X as a sign of the cross where Christ was crucified, or for Christ himself. But this symbol or marker can be understood as a crossing over to another dimension, a transcendence, transformation, or transmigration. It's a symbol of revolution and change. I've done deep dives on Freemasonic symbolism and frat club symbolism, and it does really, unless you're really fully trained in the language, you're never going to be able to fully decode it all. It's a lifetime of knowledge. Yeah, we've got the two pillars, the balancing scales. Is that some sort of pine cone on the right side pillar, which is, got geometrical information in it. It comes from the classical, template of, which is based on geometry, right? It all comes from geometry, but geometry is a separate language, right, to the language of fraternal logos, right? Fraternal logos are very much like it is a language, but only the initiated understand it, like they did in heraldic times, right, with the language of heraldry, which was only to be known by the initiated, right? And it's a message to your enemies as well, right? It's a club badge, but I think we can be sure that this badge doesn't stand for liberal democracy. In fact, without, it's got fascist old order connotations linked to a fraternal club, right? We'll leave that there. I'm introducing you to this guy. I don't know about him, but I know he's in this group of people, right, around Trump, who's embedded in the, that the group, the wider group are techno bros. I call them techno bros, but they're a group of people, influential people on the right-wing side of politics that are around Trump, and a lot of them are linked into, people like David Sachs, Peter Thiel, Elon Musk. Until 2017, Weinstein was a professor of biology at Evergreen State College, Washington State. He co-authored an article on the reserve capacity hypothesis, which proposed that the telomeric differences between humans and laboratory mice have led scientists to underestimate the risks that new drugs pose to humans in the form of heart disease, liver dysfunction, and related organ failure. I don't read all of this. I'm speed reading. So you can speed read like I can. So I'm just seeing blah, blah, blah at the moment. Right, here we go. Following his resignation from Evergreen, Weinstein appeared on the podcasts of Sam Harris and Joe Rogan on many occasions. He moderated 2 debates between Harris and Jordan Peterson. So look, Jordan Peterson, we knows on the Russian disinformation propaganda platform, right? If you're watching, you know that. If you don't agree with it, well, just continue to listen or jog on. If you don't believe in it, it's up to you. I've already proved it. Weinstein appeared in the documentary No Safe Spaces, which documents the Evergreen incidents. He was named in 2018. I'm speed reading now. Well, I'm not. I'm thinking as well. There's a lot to research here, you know, if you want to find more out about him. You know, I'm focused on this network. I don't get too bogged down with particular people. We know he's in a network, right? He's part of the network. And he's in Trump's team, right? Weinstein is married to Heather Haley, an evolutionary biologist. So they're both into this evolutionary biology. God. You know, when I think of Trump and the ideology, biological evolution is not the thing that I think about. Well, I do in the sense of evolution going backwards and idiocracy, right? Not in... But, like, you know, there is this, without me, I know that there's an ideology from the right Christian nationalism and right-wing Zionism, Jewish. Those ideologies converge, right, in the West. Right-wing white Christian nationalism and right-wing hardline Zionism converge, right? Similar ideologies. And that's the base of the states, right? So what I'm trying to, you know, I already know, I'm just trying to help people that follow me to realise where I'm coming from. And also I'm teaching people about Renaissance and revolutionary symbolism, right? The Renaissance, and, you know, comes from the ideologies from Plato about the Republic, right? The ideas of the Republic don't necessarily come from Plato, right? It was the ideologies put forth in his essays from the book Republic, which is a lot about the philosophies of the ancient Greeks, Socrates, amongst others, right? Now that's the real roots of the Republic, the rational philosophies behind the people from the Greek civilization, right? Like Plato and Socrates, right? It wasn't a white Christian nationalist Renaissance. It was the opposite to that, right? Christian Renaissance and Republic are two different things, right? But the ideology that's being put forth by the, you know, these so-called libertarians, you know, they're coming from a traditionalist Christian songbook, but they have this they're not Christians though, are they? They just, you know, they're right. They've got, you know, it's like Hitler wasn't a Christian, but he used the faith and said the right words. We've all seen the fucking film Eli, right? The book of Eli, yeah. You know, if you use the words in the right way, you can get you can get the mob to carry you. I've simplified it, right, for you. Right, Mr. Weinstein. Right-wing Christianity and white Christian nationalism converges with right-wing Jewish nationalism. And there's a worldwide political ideology in the West that is the right wing, right? Now, the liberal parties, or the more left-leaning parties, you know, we went through decades of being subverted by communism, and that's what the far left is. But our left wing now, they're not communists, right? It's about liberal democracy, and this was what the Republic was. It was, you know, the Renaissance in Florence 600, 700 years ago wasn't a Christian Renaissance. It was a Renaissance of the printed book and the rational knowledge from the Greek philosophers in printed books. that were first put out, right? And, you know, the first people that got access to that were the more well-to-do, the aristocracy. So the, you know, the teachings of Aristotle in the Renaissance, because Aristotle was one of the people in, as a consequence of the Greek Republic and Renaissance, you know, ideologies led to a peak in their civilization. Aristotle was a peak of that knowledge. He was an engineer who was able to combine all of the philosophies and put the, he, you know, Aristotle created the blueprint for science to be able to progress, right? So there was all of this rational thought from people like Pythagoras, Plato, and other great Greek people, and a knowledge of mathematics, which are culminated with the knowledge of like people like Aristotle. So in Florence, the people who first had access to books that were getting printed and distributed, right, they were the aristocracy. Now that's spread across Europe, you know, over, you know, it didn't happen in 1 year, it took decades. But that carried, you know, the Renaissance carried on, taking decades further for that information to start trickling down to the general public, who were the majority at that time illiterate. And this problem still remains, right? There's so much ignorance and illiteracy in society in the West that people don't even understand what the Renaissance is about. So the Renaissance is able to be hijacked by the old order, ancient regime of the right wing, and that is exactly what's happened. I might have to start proving this in my videos. I mean, you know, Christianity suppressed us. Christianity suppressed us for hundreds of years, right? The age of enlightenment and the age of reason, that all comes from the foundational knowledge that the Greeks gave us, which is the basis of scientific rational thought, and the age of reason is of that, right? You know, that's the origins of the Republic. A rebellion, or you know, not a rebellion as such, but it was. A rebellion is the right word, right? A Renaissance was a rebellion of ideology against the old Catholic order, right, at the time. And that Catholic order's ideology was a medieval ideology preaching to a mostly illiterate, people that can't read, flock. They had control of people's minds. But the Renaissance and the literature of mathematics and geometry, that was a foundational knowledge of science, that was thousands of years old, gave spark to an age of reason. And that Renaissance of the printed book, there was a Renaissance in Christianity, which led to the Protestant movement and the reformation of the church. If there wasn't the Renaissance of the development of the printed book and the freedoms that people started to demand as citizens, right? Citizens, be it gay, you know, in the public pressure, you know, forced politicians in the Republic to do stuff for the people. That is what the Republic is. When the people begin to demand what is fair and just, the old order has to cave in, right? I've simplified it for you there. Tucker Carlson is another one that spreads this ideology Tucker Carlson's ideology spreads a medieval ideology about demons. He does it every week. Oh, I got attacked by a demon. in my sleep, right? Praise Jesus. Oh, I found Christianity. It's a medieval mindset of Christianity. The fact is, though, that all he's doing is playing to the base of the Bible Belt. This is what's been going on over 50 years. A lot of illiteracy has always been in the Bible belts, but there's a lot of radicalized Christianity ideology that's been subverted by evangelical Christianity with the help of Russia's subversion and technology, right? Because these guys are brainwashing people online, right, with sophisticated propaganda techniques from Russia, with the techno bros, spreading this ideology, which they don't believe in. They're just using that to fool the plebs, aren't they? Right? We all know Tucker Carlson. We all heard the tapes of what he really thinks, right? About the people that listen to him. He's not a Christian, but he's using that ideology to fool his base. I just hope we're a bit more intelligent over here in Britain because, well, look, this is the thing, you know. This is the problem with the left or, you know, the Democrats in America. You're not fighting hard enough. You're letting it slide. And the people, the suppressed, illiterate people that believe in God in the Bible belts are fighting, right? They believe they're fighting the demons. That old medieval mindset. We've been through it all before. America's been through it all before. Why do you think all the southern flags have got the old Catholic cross on? The ex-Catholic cross. The Spanish flag, right? Look at the Florida flag. It's got clear links to the Spanish flag, which is the old order from Spain, right? And this is what these guys are tied to, right? They're not proper Protestant Christians, right? They're not. They're using religion and they've blended it with an ideology of politics, right? Which is libertarianism. It's a dark day today. But look, you know, darkest hour is always before dawn, isn't it? I'm not upset. I'm like, my energy's down today because like I'm just like it's a sad day for the Republicans getting in. Back to this guy. I know enough about Tucker Carlson. He's just a mouthpiece, but this Bret Weinstein. Well, look, I'm gonna look into him. So to summarise for the video, yet you know this is an intro for NAFO people, but as well, you know, I've put enough in for my audience that are with me already. Anyone new, hello and welcome. Look, to summarise, Bret Weinstein needs further investigation. The parable is he looks like the mad SS genetics doctor, right? Look, we're dealing with a load of radical loony bins, aren't we, yeah? Robert Kennedy. These people, they've got Nazi ideologies. I use the term Nazi loosely. They've got, this is the old guard, right? That's what they call themselves, the old guard. But, you know, I don't know. That's what this video's for. It's to open up a debate. I'm going to continue to research these people. My channel's been going 9 years. Looks like YouTube have let me out the bag finally, because whenever I used to do videos talking about this symbology, I used to get flagged and get strikes. They wouldn't let me out, but like if they let me out with this one, obviously the algorithms have changed now. So I'll let you watch the rest of the video. I've made plenty of suggestions and I've put down a lot of groundwork in this video alone, and I'm going to continue to do it looking at through the lens of the propaganda, the ideologies, and then I'm going to continue to educate about the geometrical symbolism that there is a lack of public knowledge to do with the subject. So my channel's going to be a little bit of a place where the basics of geometry are laid down, and then some of the history and of the Republic, the symbolism, and and propaganda, right? Because look, we're all victims of a long-term propaganda campaign, and the micro-targeting data harvesting that's going on now is out of control. It was out of control 9 years ago. These guys are behind it, and it's the same people that are pushing behind the push for Web 2.10. There are a lot of the guys behind crypto as well. Are they their own new world order, or are they completely in bed with the axis of evil and Putin and the Russian axis? Look, we've got 4 years to tie the pieces together, so I think we need to all educate ourselves a bit more. Have a great day, guys, and hopefully I'll get some feedback from this video. Speak to you soon. Intellectual dark web. This is like, these techno bros, that the same people behind the push for Web 2.10, right, they're not Christians, are they? Is Elon Musk a Christian? Is David Sachs a Christian? I don't think so. They're attacking Marxism. They're attacking cultural Marxism. And I see, this is, to put that in a nutshell, this is what I mean with the popular culture in the West since the 60s has allowed itself to, I see a side of it where counterculture, right, has been, that's the subversion that Russia have helped attack us with Marxism, right? We were too open to it. We've let the Trojan horse through the door, right? That's how I see it. So there is some sort of truth, right? There's a truth to and this is one of the prices you pay with liberal democracy. We've been too accepting and too inviting of unity to become, blended and united. That drive to push us into a multiculturalism that's the problem. But there's a combination of ground roots movements and then movements that are hijacked. And I feel that the white Christian nationalist movement is not the same ideology as liberal democracy. And I feel that the openness and freedoms of liberal democracy have let in these ideologies that have undermined people's relation to their own traditional values. And that's what the cultural Marxism is. Russia have been playing this game for decades. And they may, and that's what I mean by a Trojan horse. It's an old script, the propaganda of Marxism. We were fighting on the streets about Marxism and fascism 100 years ago, nearly 90 years ago, right? The far left and the far right are mirrors of each other. It's all done with mirrors. origin. The term intellectual dark web was coined as a joke by mathematician and venture capitalist Bret Weinstein and popularised by New York Times opinion editor Barbara Weiss. That's his, right, so they're like a combo team, aren't they? A duo. It has been used to refer to various academics and social commentators. You know, this is the Trojan horse, isn't it? Where, you know, in this, the division, you can see it now. The right wing scream at the left, "Oh, you're communists," right? And then the left wing scream at the right. It's about, and this is what I mean. The far left and the far right are mirrors of each other. It's the same team, right? Creating the division. They've got the same ideologies. And the more you get people to fight from the far left and the far right, you're able to manipulate politics. That's what my channel name is about, fire in the minds of men. That was how the French Revolution was, you know, even though it was there were grounds roots movements, it was engineered as well by the powers that be, right? And the way it was done was to create, what you do, you create rumours and you spread gossip. So when you create rumours and spread gossip throughout the population, people become scared and it creates a division. And you can start playing up, you know, it's the game of divide and rule, right? It is the Hegelian dialectic, and that's what's going on at the moment. Identity politics, political correctness. You know, that's what I mean is, you know, you got to know your history. The fascists were doing this in the 30s, right? Using this technique. You know, David Sachs and Peter Thiel in the book Diversity Myth is the same thing, right? It's the red wedge. And the propaganda philosophy of the red wedge, the Russians are using that constructivism propaganda on us, right? I think it's the propaganda that, you know, I think everyone's too naive to it. A lot, we aren't, you know, people aren't calling it out for what it truly is. It needs to be recognised. You know, there's a lot of news stories coming out at the moment about how people are becoming radicalised online. That's what the problem is, right? People are becoming radicalised online with far left Marxism. And I mean far left Marxism that's converging with right wing Islamic State, right? You know, the whole free Palestine ideology. And then you know, you got, that's the far left, right? You know, in the UK we've got George Galloway, like he's got that, he's a socialist, he's like, you know, got communist leanings, you know, he's a Marxist, right? And, you know, the people out on the streets over the last 18 months, right, have been waving their Palestinian flags and like that, their Islamic State revolutionary flags, which have an ideology about them. You know, Russia have been, that red symbolism in the Iranian, you know, in the Palestine flag is linked to this revolutionary ideology, right? And the revolutionary ideology that's coming out of Iran is Islamic State ideology, right? And this is the big, no, this is that on the far right we've got white Christian nationalism, right? And we've got right-wing Zionism. Those two right-wing forces are at odds with Islam, right? But liberal democracy is you know, this is what cultural Marxism is about. You know, because we've let so many immigrants into the country, we're multicultural, and we've through populism and popular culture, we've tried to shift, right? public's opinion into, stepping away from our traditional Christian values into this new, liberal mindset that is moved away from its Christian and scientific values towards an irrational, ideology. In the New Age culture, it's like spiritualism, which is a medieval mindset, believing in the power of spirits and all of that. That's what I'm saying is the ideology that has infected the West. It's made us really weak, and you can see it in youngsters today, right? They're also, it's all this open-mindedness and all this, blending of Eastern religions has made us really weak. So there is, calling out this cultural Marxism, there is some truth to it, right? These people have got a point, but they're doing it and they're riling a base of Christian, right-wing Christian nationalists, and there's this point of convergence we have now where we have spiritualism converging with, a form of right-wing spiritualism in the form of people like Russell Brand, where Christianity meets fucking yoga, right? And then we've got I've lost what I was going to say now because I was reading something. But you with me, right? You get it. You get what I'm talking about. This cultural Marxism, right? I'm back on point. You shouldn't read and talk whilst you're doing a video. We've been infiltrated over the last 50 years with the help of our liberalism. We've allowed it, right, to happen. And Russia have been working away with a 50-year plan. That Marxism was the brainwashing we had for decades in the Cold War. And that instilled an ideology in the West. But that ideology of communism flipped in Russia. They changed script 25 years ago, right, with the rise of Putin. The ideology now in Russia is right-wing Christian nationalism based on populism and libertarianism, right, ruled by a dictator. And we've just made a massive shift towards that with Trump getting in America, right? We've shifted in Europe to a right-wing, white Christian nationalist theology. And what's happened in the last 20 years through online and the 30 years before that through popular culture, we've become so open-minded and so liberal and so, anything goes, oh, it's all good, doesn't matter what you believe in, so accepting. That was the Trojan horse. Now we've got an enemy within, right? The old order know this and they're playing that. They're playing, look, this is the thing. A populist left-wing movement could be just as damaging as a populist right-wing movement, right? It's not about right is bad and left is good or vice versa. It's about knowing the whole spectrum, right? Religious conservatism. This is at the roots of it. This is what I'm trying to get to. Online, what you can see is this Christian conservatism is blended with a form of left-wing spiritualism, and it in my opinion it's a medieval mindset. But I think there are powers that be, like coming from the church and Russia and different power structures, Christianity, Russia, our enemies, the different axes, different networks have got a valid interest to rile up this, white Christian nationalism, which has really taken hold in the States. It's created so much division. I'm just going to leave it here, I think. I'm in a day of reflection today. I've got some videos lined up to do with geometry. I'm going to continue doing that. I'm going to do some good videos about what the Republic means, what the Renaissance means, the knowledge behind the Renaissance. It's not Christian Zionism, that's for sure, right? You know, this whole Christian Zionism and the Holy Land and the Jews is behind some of this ideology, right? This is part of the network. Funding of the state of Israel. You know, the thing is, you've got to consider this in Israel as a left-wing, they're a left-wing liberal Zionists. I'm not pointing fingers at Zionists. There are some bad people though who are really right-wing Zionists. Yeah, I mean, like Netanyahu. Netanyahu's going to be celebrating today, isn't he? There's some dark days ahead for us, guys. I don't want to be doom and gloomy, but there's this. What it's all building up to. The two big ideologies that are clashing. It's obviously the West and the axis of autocracy. But in Europe and in America, and religiously wise, there's three ideologies. I mean, look, we've got the rational scientists and atheists, right? That's one ideology. Another ideology is Christianity. The other ideology is Islam. And that's hard right-wing Islam and hard right-wing Christian Zionism, I think, is the old axis of order, yeah? The old regime. The old world order. I think that we need another renaissance, and I think a lot of people need to realise what the Republic actually means, because this isn't it, right? This is a bunch of religious, evangelic, and religious fundamentalists, right? And they believe in the end times, these guys. Or if they don't believe in it, they believe in the ideologies about it. And those ideologies, well, it's racist, isn't it, at the end of the day? That's why it's white Christian nationalism. Heads up. Have a good day. We'll try to. It's all going to be all right.
Welcome to Fire in the Minds. Imagination ignited, we begin a journey of exploration together. This is Fire in the Minds.